This week on Paint It Black, I'll take a look at the WA budget and see what's in it for Indigenous West Australians. With the WA economy in its strongest position in our state's history, with a $5.6 billion surplus, there must be something in there for us, mob, right? Remote communities are desperate for better living conditions, Indigenous youth suicides continue to happen, and the general health standards are not improving fast enough. There are so many areas in need of funding, so how did we go? On Thursday, Premier Mark McGowan delivered his first budget in his second run in office and first budget as the WA Treasurer. Just like in 2020, the McGowan government has continued to focus on the state's battle against the pandemic, with $1 billion announced towards fighting the virus.
Today's budget demonstrates the strength of Western Australia's economy and our finances. Quite simply, Western Australia is the strongest state in the nation, with the brightest future. And this budget will deliver for the future by using our success today to set up the state for the long term. While our financial capacity has been bolstered by our strong economy here in WA, this budget is built on a foundation of responsible financial management over the last 4 years. As a result of that work, even in the middle of a global pandemic, unlike any other jurisdiction, Western Australia's financial position is strong and on a sustainable footing. This budget proves that by putting the health of Western Australians first, by keeping the state safe from COVID-19, we have delivered the best economic and social outcomes in Australia and possibly the world.
And so with the government focused on moving past COVID while also keeping WA COVID-free, there's been no indication on priorities for Aboriginal West Australians in the budget lead-up. Heading into this year's election, Mark McGowan's main focus for all Aboriginal West Australians was the introduction and the passing of the state's new Cultural Heritage Bill. Funding for the new bill was announced last month, which is great because finally there's going to be changes to the Heritage Act, and hopefully they're going to be made within this financial year. So where does that leave us with the rest of the budget? In health, there's been $17.6 million invested towards the Aboriginal social and emotional wellbeing pilot programs, which will be rolled out across the state. $3.6 million will be funded towards the implementation of the National Close the Gap Agreement, designed to improve the health outcomes of all Indigenous West Australians. Under education, $1 million has been committed to the Better Beginnings program, giving children in remote communities access to increased literacy and early learning. Under Justice, $1.4 million to provide a specialist family violence court in Broome to offer support to Aboriginal women who've experienced family violence. $12.6 million to establish a new children's, adolescents and youth forensic mental health and alcohol and other drugs outreach services for young people who are at risk of incarceration. $7.8 million to fund the Kimberley Juvenile Justice Strategy. This will include a new night patrol program in Fitzroy Crossing. $1.5 million towards the Western Desert Justice Program, which includes pre-sentence culturally appropriate drug and alcohol services on Murridu country in the East Pilbara. Under social, there will be $6.3 million for land acquisition and to plan and develop a new Aboriginal short stay accommodation in the CBD. $1.6 million on rapid rehousing for Aboriginal women and children. $6.2 million to increase support payments for grandparents who are the primary carers for their grandchildren, with an annual payment increase from $650 to $2,000. The expansion of the Homestretch program to run statewide, which provides support for foster children aged between the age of 18 and 21. $14 million to continue the Aboriginal Community Connectors program. Other investments also include $50 million to plan and fund the Aboriginal Cultural Centre, $20 million towards GINA, the WA Aboriginal Tourism Action Plan, $10 million towards a partnership project with Sister Kate's for a new 80-bed culturally appropriate health and aged care facility for Aboriginal elders. Yes, there is investment here for Aboriginal West Australians, but I don't see where the McGowan government is trying to take the Aboriginal Affairs portfolio. There are so many areas within the Indigenous community that are screaming out for more funding. In my opinion, Aboriginal land has been destroyed for the profit of mining royalties, which has provided this state with the $5.6 billion surplus that McGowan is bragging about. So why shouldn't we be getting more? Back in 2017, heading into the election, McGowan promised life-changing commitments, such as the removal of the fine default laws, which would have saved the life of Miss Dew, and reforming the Heritage Act, saving sacred cultural sites. But this year, going into his second term in office, with 4 Aboriginal politicians on the Labor ticket, I expected more commitments to show the community where he wants to go and what changes he wants to make in the next 4 years. But it feels like the Aboriginal vote and Aboriginal issues are no longer worthy of his attention. Mr. McGowan, don't forget about us, even when we're not trending. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and be sure to check out my weekly columns both in the West Australian and on thewest.com.au. But if you're feeling lazy, you can click here and read them all now.